All right, everyone. This is Brian Smith with the Daily Night. I'm going to be doing this podcast Monday through Friday every week. And each week, college football season, I'm going to do some predictions. The weekend prior is going to be recapped at the beginning of the week. We'll have previews towards the end of the week, etc. Today, I'm going to preview some games around the state of Florida. I'm going to do my UCF prediction tomorrow, and I'm looking forward to that. But today, I'm going to focus a little bit more on some of the games around the state because there's an influx of opportunity here with the games that are going on. Alabama goes to Gainesville. They're going to play the Gators. Florida State goes to Wake Forest, and after their debacle at the end of the Jacksonville State game, which they were apparently in man coverage or some variety of it, even though there was one play left, and I still don't understand that. They need to rebound, but they're going to have a tough opponent in Wake Forest because they've got a pretty experienced quarterback and they can score. And then we have Miami hosting Michigan State. That is an intriguing matchup because both teams are kind of headed in different directions. So let's start off with the opportunity to look at Florida State. I'm not really sure what was going on at the end of the Wake Forest game, but that interesting situation did happen. I watched it 2 or 3 times. I'm still shocked, and I'm sure Florida State fans are in dismay. What is going on in Tallahassee? Florida State, they've got a pretty good coach from everything I can tell, and from talking to people, seems like a good guy. I'm not really sure what happened at the end. Mistakes are made. You know, the kid, you got to give, first off, you need to give Jacksonville State's quarterback a little bit of credit. He threw a dime, and the guy caught it and made 2 guys miss. But that's 59 yards at the end of a game. That is extremely rare. It's one of the rarest plays you will see in college football history, to see a play go more than 30 or 40 yards at the end of a game, because you're not going to throw it all the way to the end zone. There needs to be an after-the-catch play made. And Florida State's defenders did a terrible job at the end of that game, from the front line to the middle of the defense and obviously in the back end of the secondary. So with that, Florida State needs to figure it out. But here are a couple things that I'm really concerned with. I wrote down this stat. I'm sitting here still looking at it, and I'm dismayed almost as much as I am about that final play against Jacksonville State. McKenzie Milton is only averaging 4.8 yards per attempt. He's a good quarterback. I mean, that's been proven. I know he's coming off a catastrophe of an injury, and that's fine, but he's out there playing. If he's capable, that needs to be better. Part of that's going to be obviously on the receivers, but I have a feeling that the biggest part of it is still on the offensive line. They are hit or miss. They have good plays, and then they have disastrous plays. That is the one thing that has hindered the Noles for years. Why they are unable to put a successful offensive lineman, meaning all 5. It takes 5 guys to make a successful offensive line onto the field, is mind-boggling. Florida State can run the ball occasionally. They gashed Notre Dame in certain aspects. Part of that was Notre Dame missing run fits and tackles, but hey, you got to put guys in positions to do that. And they opened some holes against Notre Dame. And they got some NFL guys in their front 7, no question. But then they turn around, and I'm just kind of looking at some stats. I don't understand how you're going to be in the level that they are with just, well, no way to say it, against teams that haven't lived up to their expectations. Notre Dame's not playing that well, and Jacksonville State, it's not about whether they're playing well. They don't have the same level of talent, and you're 0-2. Florida State rushing is pretty darn good. I mean, now, with that being stated, again, they're inconsistent doing it, but they've had some big plays. Jashaun Corbin is legit. He has a chance to be an NFL player. He has some speed. He has wiggle. He sees the plays develop, and he hits the right hole. So they're going good. His stat line's pretty impressive. 253 yards, 8.43 yards per tote. Yeah, I'll take that all day. All day. But where in the world are these plays that just, even with him, they didn't score 20 points? How in the world do you not score 20 points when you've got a running back like that? Trayshawn Ward, the freshman running back, he's a kid from Plant City that I don't even remember. I live in the Tampa area. I don't know if he walked on or where he played at, but he's averaging 6.3 yards a carry. Again, they scored 17 points against Jacksonville State. That's just unbelievable. As for Wake Forest, this is a unique team. I don't really know if anybody outside of the state of North Carolina follows them, but please take this into consideration. Sam Hartman is the quarterback for Wake Forest. He was a freshman in 2018, but he's still listed as a sophomore. That just shows you how messed up the rules are now. Because of COVID, he was considered a redshirt, and whatever. He's in a fourth-year sophomore. So anyway, but he's a good football player, and I don't expect Florida State to just win every game they play or anything, but to defeat Wake Forest, he's got 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, and he's completing 67.3% of his passes. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but he has gained mass. His freshman year, he was far undersized. Hartman is about 208 now, according to their depth chart. If Wake Forest can get out early, here's the question for this game. Can Florida State defenders, offensive players, whatever you want, I don't know what their level of anxiety is right now, but can they handle being down again? This is a very delicate game. If you lose to Wake Forest and you're 0-3, it's year 2 of a new coaching staff. I've heard great things about Florida State in regards to their facilities that are going to be going up and all this, but they're not here yet. And apparently the players are not all the way there yet either, if you know what I mean, because you can't be 0-3 and be Florida State. Cannot happen. Looking at Wake Forest, a couple other key notes here. Their rushing attack has one guy to kind of watch. Christian Beal-Smith, 2 games, 20 carries, 134 yards, 6.7 yards a carry. Those aren't overwhelming stats for 2 games, but that's solid. They don't have another runner that has over 10 carries that's really doing anything, but they have a few other guys. It's a mix. If they can get any kind of running game to go with Hartman, because, I mean, I've seen him play several times. He can throw it, no question. Florida State could be in trouble, and they could be 0-3. Now, Florida State has Jermaine Johnson. I want to mention him. I love the way that young man plays. He was at Georgia last year. He needs to come up big for Seminoles. He really does. Defensive end, he can get to the quarterback. He can shoot gaps. Very, very technically sound. This is a guy that Florida State needs to make it happen. And he's done so far. I'm not saying he hasn't, but they need him to be a stalwart from play 1 all the way through the 4th quarter. They need something to rally around, for lack of a better term. Florida State does not have that other guy on offense right now beyond Corbin that's just dominating. They've got good players, but obviously the offensive line, penalties, just random miscues, snaps against Notre Dame that might have cost them. They had missed snaps. They just found ways to fail. Being stated, they still have a chance to kind of get it going again. It's only game 3, and they're rebuilding the program. Can Hartman be stopped? Can they get pressure on him? It starts with Jermaine, and they've got to be more consistent in the running game and finish drives. If Corbin's getting that many yards of rushing and he's averaging that many yards per carry, there's 0 expense being put into the offensive line as far as I'm concerned. They're doing something wrong. I don't care how much they're spending. It's still 0. And what I mean by that, their philosophy's wrong, the coaching's wrong, the players wrong, something. I have no idea what it is. I'm not there. But there's no way you can have a guy that talented and score 17 against Jacksonville State. 17 will get you blown out against Wake Forest because Hartman and those guys are going to score 30. They're going to score 30. If you do not bring your A game, you're going to get whipped. That's just the way it is. The only other guy that I'm going to mention for Wake Forest, Jakari Roberson, he's averaging 14.3 yards a catch. He's a good player, and he's got a couple of touchdowns, 10 catches in 2 games. Florida State obviously struggled at the end of their last game against Jacksonville State. They have to keep Hartman in check. Roberson is his main guy. It's cut and dry. No other receiver has more than 6 catches for 100 yards in 2 games. I mean, this is their guy. You need to take him away to make Hartman have to check down to make them run the ball. With that said, like most people, I'm sure, I have Florida State losing this game. I've got the Demon Deacons winning 38-24. I just don't have any faith in Florida State. I flat out don't have any faith in them. Prove me wrong. When you put up 17 points against Jacksonville State, I have nothing else to say about you. So that is that. Moving on, the game that most people around the country are talking about. I'm obviously focusing on teams here in the state of Florida and what's going on. Florida Gators. Been a lot of consternation about Anthony Richardson, the talented former East Side high school football player. He's from Gainesville and played at East Side, and he is a tremendous athlete. He kind of pulled up lame against USF at the end of an 80-yard touchdown run last week. But Anthony is just such a big deal to them because he gives them an additional weapon. I don't really think that there's anything wrong with Emory Jones per se. It's just Anthony Richardson's a good football player. Emory Jones needs to make better reads, and I could do 10 podcasts on that. But he's going to do pretty well in Dan Mullen's scheme. Anthony Richardson at the other side of the day, he's just a different level because he's so big. He's like a Tim Tebow in the terms of just being a massive guy that can really make people miss, and he can lower his shoulder and knock you over. This is a special talent. If he does not play at 100%, that's going to hinder them. Alabama's front seven is definitely top 5 in college football, probably top 2 or 3. If I had to guess, I would say Georgia and Alabama have the top 2, maybe Clemson right there. Take your pick of those 3. Not real surprising, by the way. With that being stated, Anthony Richardson did come up a little lame. But here are his stats running the football in 2 games, and not being the starter, mind you. 11 carries for 275 yards and 2 touchdowns. Yeah, that's solid. Emory Jones, 23 carries for 155 yards. This is Dan Mullen's traditional offense that we're seeing. What we saw last year is what he did. Mullen did a tremendous job of adjusting. He didn't have a quarterback that fit his traditional run first for the quarterback kind of offense. I know I asked Dan Mullen when he first started with Urban Meyer, and he'd never coached a game yet as the coordinator at Bowling Green. I said, what's your ideal quarterback? Dan turned around and looked at me and said, Michael Vick. And his eyes about popped out of his head. I remember that to this day. He was like a kid in a candy shop, and he was the only one in there. But Anthony Richardson may not be Michael Vick, but he is a tremendous player. And then Emory's a little bit smaller, but he's still a pretty good sized guy that can run. Can they do that against Alabama, though? I'm not so sure that's a realistic total to really get into, because Alabama's defense is on a whole nother level. They haven't been the same the last couple of years. Injuries really hindered the Crimson Tide. Really did. They're a little healthier now, but we'll see what they can do. I'm going to talk about one of their players in just a moment. But first, I want to talk about a matchup that may not get discussed in this game that should. Now, I know Florida hasn't played great competition in their first 2 games. Not saying anything other than that. But they have 7 sacks in 2 games. And Zachary Carter in particular is really off to a good start. 3 sacks. Alabama doesn't give up many sacks. They've only given up 3 in 2 games, and they throw it quite a bit. The offensive line lost some players, just like it does every year, but Alabama reloads. They don't restart their system or rebuild, any of the words you want to use. Zach Carter needs to get off the ball and force quarterback Bryce Young to get off his spot. If that does not happen, Alabama will win by double digits. Gator fans can yell at me all they want, but that's the bottom line. I don't think any team's going to come within 10 points of Alabama all the way through the national title game this year. That's my opinion. But this might be the game that's the most likely. It's crazy in that place. If you've never been to the Swamp, you need to go. I don't care if you hate the Florida Gators. It's a neat place to see a college football game. And quite frankly, this is a rare deal. For whatever reason, forever, and the SEC is weird about its conference scheduling with the East and the West, Alabama never frickin' plays Florida. It's stupid. They're playing them this year. It's one of those random deals. Let's enjoy it. Let's hope to see a great game from start to finish. And let's hope that noise from the Gators is going to be loud. And I'm sure it will be. It's got to be crazy this weekend, I would imagine, for Florida, Alabama. The other guys that I'm really interested to see for the Gators are just how any of the other defensive linemen step up. Gervan Dexter plays nose guard, but he can move around. He's a kid from here in the state of Florida that I remember at Lake Wales. He's really developed, came into football a little later. I think Gervan is going to have a big part of this because they need to slow down Alabama's rushing attack. It's not dominant. Brian Robinson is their main guy, but he's not even close to their most talented running back. He's just a senior, kind of knows the system. If they don't slow that down, the opportunities for Zach Carter, they're not going to be there. You have to take away the run. If they throw for 350, that's fine, but you have to make them kick field goals once Alabama reaches the red zone. If you do not, you're going to get your butt kicked. If they can run the ball to go with what Bryce Young can do throwing the football, you have no shot. He's too accurate. And he gets rid of the football in a really quick manner. He's not going to sit back there forever. He's gotten a little better at it. He's not perfect by any means. This isn't Drew Brees or Peyton Manning yet. Now, let's be realistic. Still, Bryce Young gets rid of the football quickly. You got to make it 2nd down and 8. You got to, especially early in the game. The first 2 possessions for Alabama, they cannot let them run the ball at all. If they come out, they're averaging 5 or 6 yards a carry, this game could be over quickly. You're not going to beat Alabama being down early and they can dictate to you with their play calling. Too many skill guys. Slade Bolden's like their 4th or 5th guy, and he was a key player last year. He's getting beat out by JoJo Earl, a true freshman out of Texas who can fly. They're just reloading. Again, Alabama has what they need at the skill spots, and they also have Mr. Williams at receiver. They get the kid from Ohio State, a late transfer. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So can they do anything to really slow them down? I don't know. But Alabama's receiving core and their running backs, just like any other year, make a lot of plays in space. I just don't know if Florida or any other school can do anything other than take the running game away. Plays outside the numbers, if you have an accurate quarterback, the way the rules are and just the way the game is played in general, it favors the offense. And Bryce Young does not miss many opportunities. I'm picking Alabama to win this game 38-28. I just don't think that Florida will slow them down quite enough in the run game. I think they'll do a solid job, but I think Alabama will run for 100 to 120 yards, and it will keep them honest enough. And then Jamison Williams, who's going to be a household name around college football from what I've seen of him in the first couple games. He only has 7 catches, but 157 yards, and he's that big body guy that can change a game because he's got pretty good speed. He's not just a possession guy. He can really run. That's going to be Bryce's opportunity to go over the top. If it's a money down, etc., look for him. Mechie's a good player. Earl, who I mentioned a few minutes ago, and Bolden. And then the check down game, he will do that. He'll throw to his running backs. He's not afraid to hit Robinson in the flat and make it 2nd and 6. For a young player that's only a sophomore and a true sophomore at that, that's a good sign for Alabama football. They have a guy that's going to make good mental decisions, not let that happen where he just throws the pick 6 that gets him in total trouble. Good for him. Probably not good for college football, but everybody's tired of Alabama, but they're really good, and you have to respect it. So, again, I have Alabama winning 38-28 in the Swamp. I want to see Florida win just because it would be something different, and I am totally sick of Alabama. But at the same time, you just got to pick what's realistic, and until otherwise proven, Alabama is the best team in college football. The third game I want to talk about is Miami hosting Michigan State. This is a cool matchup. You don't see a lot of this anymore. You have teams from around the country that come out and they'll play just weak teams, smaller conferences, FCS, etc. You don't see as many Power 5 on the road games as you used to. And I don't know what it is. Hopefully that's going to change in some ways with the college football playoff eventually expanding, but I digress. Michigan State has some talent. They're a team that runs the ball well. And Miami, I'm mad at myself. I thought their defense would be pretty solid this year. I thought they would surprise some people, but it's not really the defense that's the issue. It's just they're put in my opinion, tough positions. when you have to constantly run around like a madman, meaning D'Eriq King, because your offensive line is failing. It's the same problem Florida State has. Where's the offensive line? And you have to make creative plays just to get a first down on 3rd and 5. It's going to be hard to win. They barely won this past weekend against Appalachian State, and they're a quality program. But Miami has far superior talent compared to what Appalachian State has. Kicking a late field goal and winning 25-23 is unacceptable. Everybody knows it. Just wanted to state it for the record. That being stated, Michigan State has a couple of guys that most people probably don't know anything about. And until I turned on the TV during their first game against Northwestern, I was like, who is that guy? Kenneth Walker III. You better know his name. You better know it real fast if you're Miami fans. 321 yards, 5 touchdowns, 2 games. He can play. He absolutely destroyed Northwestern. He had over 200 yards rushing. They didn't play him as much this past weekend. They didn't need to. The point is this. If Miami's defense, which is okay, I think the Alabama game is kind of hard to define. They were discombobulated at points, but, I mean, Miami has good talent, but not Alabama talent. What they did against App State, they had their moments. You better right the ship this game, because Walker is one of those guys that will make you look stupid in a one-on-one situation. Just flat out make you look stupid. Quick, decisive, and powerful. He is, I'm not saying the same level, but in style, he reminds me a little bit of Emmitt Smith in terms of how he tries to run. He bounces off guys. He always falls forward, and he will make you miss in space. Miami's tackling has left a lot to be desired from what I've seen, and that's kind of a problem around college football, but I don't believe Miami can get down in this game. If Michigan State, this is similar to kind of like the Florida game, you better start good. I was shocked that Miami was favored in this game. I'm like, who's doing the line on this? I don't think it's any doubt Michigan State should be favored. I think Miami's favored by like 6. Based on what? I love D'Eriq King, but the guy, he's not in a situation to dictate who wins the game based on what's going on around him, especially up front. He's getting the short end of the stick. He has like 1 touchdown passing in 2 games. D'Eriq King, he's going to play in the NFL. He has 1 touchdown pass. That's how little time he has to throw. It's pathetic. Miami needs to figure out offensive line. It's stated every year, but for some reason, it never gets really any better. Why? I have absolutely no earthly clue. With that, they better come out early and slow down Mr. Walker. He's a very good football player again, and they better find a way to get some turnovers. They need some kind of juice, something different, not just an 80-yard drive. Those are great. You always want them. They need excitement around their fan base, because right now, what are they cheering for? They're a disaster. So Peyton Thorne is the quarterback for Michigan State. He's a good player. He's got 5 touchdowns, no interceptions, averaging 10 yards of attempt. You come out and think that he's just a guy, and then what's going to happen at that point? Are you really going to be able to do anything if you just respect the run and not the pass? Probably not, because then they'll just pick you apart. They need to play flat out, fundamentally sound football, and I don't want to hear any garbage about how Miami lost players last year, this or that. They have enough players on defense in particular, in my opinion, to hold Michigan State to under 25, 24 or less. Let's see what they do. Recent history tells me they will fail in that regard. Prove me wrong. It would be nice for Miami to be relevant again, but right now they are not. The way they're playing, they're not relevant. They don't have anything that shows me they're going to be relevant, especially since this is going to be King's last year in a Miami uniform. So moving forward, I don't know what's going to happen. What is going to happen this weekend? It's going to start with their defense, not their offense. O-line play takes a long time to iron out. It's not even close. There's nothing in second or third in terms of development. O-line is the longest. You got 5 guys trying to do something together. On defense, you can have individual guys that can create and cause havoc that can take away from an opposing team. I had a couple guys I was going to mention. I'm not going to say it. I'm going to do it this way. Collectively, they need to slow down Michigan State. But whether it's one of the freshman defensive linemen that steps up, maybe it's a senior linebacker, maybe it's a safety that gets a big pick, whatever it is, something early in that game needs to give the Miami team and, quite frankly, their fan base reason to cheer. The offensive line isn't going to get it done this week. I'll just go ahead and state that record. They've proven they're not very good. Cameron Harris, the other guy that I think is an NFL player for them for sure, should be averaging 6 or 7 yards a carry, doesn't even average 5 because of that offensive line. And again, I hope they improve this week, but still, Michigan State, they're a solid team on defense. Not great. They're not overwhelmingly talented, but they're more fundamentally sound, and they don't give up as many busts for what little I've seen of them. Now, I haven't studied them as much as Miami, but I've watched them enough. That's a good football team. It's consistent, and they've got a stud at running back. Quarterback, Peyton Thorne, is also a guy that you don't want to allow to have play action opportunities. And I know you're going to have to put 7 in the box to kind of slow down what they do, but if he's able to throw the play action game, he's got a receiver named Jaden Reed who's got 245 yards in 2 games. That's impressive. I don't care who you're playing. That's a lot of yards. So can Miami find a way to slow down the running game? Because if they don't, it's going to be a long afternoon. I have Michigan State winning this game 34-27. I like Michigan State because I just trust their program more. That's as simple as it gets. All 3 of these games, I've got the Florida teams losing, and it's just the state of Florida right now. It's bizarre, but the state of Florida right now, outside of the Gators and the Knights, is pretty bad. And the Gators are playing Alabama this weekend. So, I mean, you want them to win if you're a Florida Gator fan, but if they lose, you understand. The other 2 out of the traditional big 3 are in disarray. And quite frankly, there needs to be something changing. Manny Diaz is in trouble at Miami, in my opinion, and he may not survive the end of this year. I don't know what the money situation, what they would buy him out for. That's really the bigger thing. How do we pay him if we're going to fire him? That's the case with all college football programs. But if they lose to Michigan State this weekend, and I think they will, he is going to be definitively on the hot seat. And I don't think much of him as a head coach anyway, but this weekend will be a chance to prove me and a lot of other doubters wrong, because most sports writers I talk to don't think much of him either. The point is, he needs to find a way to get his team to play better. The offensive line stinks, but this is what it is. You're there. You got to make it work. It's your program. It's year 2. Nothing's changed from year 1. Not a good sign. Make it happen. Florida State, that situation's pretty unusual. I'm dismayed by the situation with how they had so much optimism. It looked like they had a chance against Notre Dame. They let that slip away. Had the game against Jacksonville State, even though they'd played poorly offensively. They didn't even have a touchdown, I don't think, going into the 4th quarter. Or if they did, it was like 6 points, 7 points, and they lose on a 59-yard play. The state of Florida in general, this kind of the wrap up here, is just very much just a garbage all across the board. It's terrible. They find ways to lose instead of finding ways to win. Dumpster fire, I guess that's the term that's used so much. Maybe you just want to use that. That's kind of the state of Florida in college football right now. It's a dumpster fire because Miami and Florida State, at least one, if not both of them, need to be 8-4 better every year, and that is neither one of them right now. They can be anything. They could be 6-6. They could. I mean, Florida State, they weren't even good enough to go to a bowl game last year. We need college football in Florida to be more balanced. That's the overall theme, and that's why I previewed these games the way I did today. I mean, I just said it. It's just embarrassing because this state had 37 players drafted into the NFL this past April, #1 in the country, yet our football programs at the college level, -2, stink. Why is that? What is the deal? I mean, I could cover the USF game. I mean, they're not playing a Division I team, so I'm not going to mess with it. But they're so bad, it doesn't matter. They could lose, and it wouldn't surprise me. I'm not even going to talk about USF. That is dumpster fire would be nice. They are atrocious. But we need to see Florida State and Miami raise their play. But until otherwise proven, I'm going to pick against them more often than not. So just to recap, I've got all three of the teams in state that you would traditionally think of losing. I'm going to do my UCF prediction tomorrow on tomorrow's podcast. But Florida State, I expect them to lose in a fairly close game, but I think Wake Forest will pull away. And I don't think that Alabama will crush Florida. They'll win by about 10, 38-28. And then I got 34-27 for Michigan State over the Hurricanes. So that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the Daily Night. Again, tomorrow I am going to be covering UCF game. I'm going to talk about it more in depth. I'm going to talk with some parents of some of the UCF players. I'm flying up to Louisville in a few hours. I'm going to go over to the team hotel and check it out. But the thing that I really want people to know, there's going to be a lot of information regarding what UCF's got going on my Twitter. And that's the site scrolling across here. If you have any questions about anything, you can find me on Twitter at FBScout_Florida. That's probably the quickest way. That's the one I use my inbox with. I have another account, all caps, UCF_Fan Nation. The F and the N are capitalized. That's the other Twitter account that I use. But either one, you can find me. And there's information about the games, the players that I've really covered, talking about Florida and all this stuff here is just a bonus. I'm going to be covering UCF very heavily. So the Daily Night, Monday through Friday, every day it's going to be up. Pretty soon I'm going to have a set time and I'll start doing some live shows, but I haven't got it quite figured out yet what is the best time. So it'll be in the mornings, and it'll probably be between 8 and 9 that it gets up most of the time. So anyway, everybody have a safe day. I look forward to getting up to Louisville, and I'll be reporting up some information later tonight, and there'll be another article coming out. So take care. Everybody be safe.